It's time to lady up, America. I'm Diane Canada. Welcome to the show today. And let me tell you something in love, okay? With all the love in my heart. Enough with the sloppy Christianity. Jesus holds us to a much higher standard. I know a lot of us are trying. When we know better, we do better. I know that. And we're all work in progress for sure. But here's the thing. A lot of us are just lazy. If you're lazy, you just want to keep being lazy. If it's just all about your comfort and God forbid you be inconvenienced, then just click right off this podcast right now. Don't even stay because this is not for you today. But if you're all in for Jesus and you're ready to lady up in your faith and walk that out and you're ready to win souls for him in these last days, and you'd have to be willfully ignorant to not see that we're in the last days, then this is for you. If you're all in, I'm all in for you today. And we're going to dive into this subject hard. All right, before we do that, we're going to first stop with our good friend Steve Gill from TriStar Daily. We're going to dig into the news headlines today and look at them through the biblical lens before we then go into my Tea Time Cafe and break this subject down enough with the sloppy Christianity. All right, right before we do that, if I could ask a favor, if you would you mind liking or subscribing here to the podcast? It just helps to tell the algorithm to recommend this show to other people like you who might also need to hear this. I know we don't always want to hear stuff like this, but we need to hear it. And I'll tell you, I need to hear it today because I have a tendency to be lazy. Yes, I do. I can be lazy on days when I don't want to do it. I just don't want to, I'm all nestled in, cuddled into my blankets and stuff. Sometimes I don't want to be inconvenienced either. But you know what? I want more. I want to please him more. And I know you do too. So if that's you, you'll be right at home in this show. And we're going to do this together. All right, I'll be right back with Steve Gill.
Our children will know peace again, 'cause we're on the job. Yeah, lady. We're fired up and we're ready, so give us a little room. Get up. Our faith don't move that mountain now, just watch it move. Taking back this house, taking back this town. Mama, don't back down. No. Just a lady up.
All right, ladies, welcome back. It's time to sit down with our good friend, Steve Gill. He is the founding publisher and editor at TriStar Daily at tristardaily.com. Let me tell you why he is so valuable to this show. It's one thing to watch a talking head on the news, right? It's one thing to get something from a paper, but when you've got someone who's got brings such well-rounded experience to the table, it's invaluable. Steve has worked in the White House. He has been on syndicated radio, talk radio for many years, and he also does international television commentary. So he really does have a finger on the pulse of how the rest of the world feels about America. Again, invaluable. We're so grateful to have him every week. Please welcome Steve Gill. Hey, Steve.
Thank you. I always love your introductions. You make me feel so good.
It's just true. I'm not here to pump sunshine. I'm just telling it like it is. You are an amazing, amazing gift to this show. I think a lot of women out there would love to just sit down and pick your brain. And that's what I try to do without overdoing it every week, but just go, okay, well, how does this work? How do these dots connect? And we just couldn't be more grateful. Steve, it's serious out there in the world. Our title today is, we can't be sloppy Christians. And that really does translate into how we interact culturally and politically. And, it's serious. There's a lot of serious things going on in the world. We know God's ultimately in control, but, we count on you to kind of bring this biblical perspective to a lot of these news headlines. And so what's on your heart today? What do you think we need to know about today?
Well, I think in fitting with your theme today, it's important to remember that when I was an athlete a long time ago, coaches would constantly remind us as you're in the preseason, and we're in the preseason for college football. It's going to crank up and be heading into full tilt in just a few weeks. Basketball practice always started mid-October and pretty quickly moved into games. And during the off season, during the preseason, coaches always emphasized when I was playing, you got to do the work. Yeah. And you don't just show up on game day and get the results if you haven't done the work. And I think the same thing is true, whether we're in business, whether we're in sports, whether we're acting as Christians. Are you doing the work? Yeah. Are you feeding your soul and feeding your head in the Bible to know what you need to know, not just to be able to communicate to others, but for you to have a better understanding, a better grasp of what's in the book that should guide us and lead us. And I just got a new Bible guide that spends a different page on each book of the Bible, giving context and giving history and giving other pieces. I like the historical perspective of what I read as well, beyond what's in the Bible, because again, you have to know, well, what does that phrase mean in Hebrew? How does it translate that it means something that relates back to the Old Testament if you're reading the New Testament? So that's the kind of doing the work that strengthens our spiritual muscles that require the same sort of thing that an athlete has to do in the off season with the running, the training, the weightlifting, the nutrition, and again, as Christians, we don't want to be sloppy Christians. We don't want to be out of shape Christians, and that means doing the work, which means getting into the book and then seeking other information that can all strengthen our understanding and our ability to grasp what we're reading.
Yeah, it's so true that we can't wait till we're in the battle, right, to start training for it. And I mean, we are in a spiritual battle every day of our lives, but we're looking at all these serious things that are coming down the pike in these news headlines, especially. And you're so right. Like, I wasn't an athlete, but I did drill team and color guard and all that in high school. And we had a great coach from DCI, and he just pushed us. He pushed us past our limits many, many times. We wanted to kill him. We hated him at the time. But when we showed up for that competition, we were ready. And he would say, you'll perform the way you practice. He would always teach us that. And it's so true. So for people out there that are just maybe looking around and in freak out, first of all, I hope you would agree, we don't need to be on a steady diet of the news headlines. Like, how much would you recommend we watch? Get your news from TriStar Daily.
A lot less than I do, a lot less than I read. So hopefully I can distill it down and give the cliff notes each week a little bit on some of the highlights, because it's so easy to get distracted, to be led down those little rabbit trails that lead nowhere and occupy time and attention, but don't really give you insight or understanding. So again, I think that if you're catching the highlights, anything more than an hour a day for the normal human is probably way too much. And because of what I do, I have to do a little bit more than that. But I think also you learn over time that if you miss a few days, it's amazing how much of the news never changes. It's the same exact thing. It's like, oh wait, they're still doing that. So I would say that you want to judge your sources very carefully. I use X heavily, but I don't trust everything I see on X, because so much of the stuff that you read is a parody account that maybe doesn't identify it as such, or people repeat. It's kind of like the old game in junior high where you would whisper something into somebody's ear at one end of the line of chairs, and then by the time it got to the other end, it was something entirely different. When you're seeing people report what they thought they heard, or what they thought they knew, or what somebody told them, so much of that's just going to be blatantly inaccurate. And particularly, again, we're in the final week and a half of the primary season in Tennessee. We're within about 95 days till the November election.
Wow.
So it's on in the political arena, and there's so much misinformation and disinformation. I mean, campaigns play with information taken way out of context to deceive us. I mean, if you're getting 20 and 30 mail pieces in your mailbox, you have to ask yourself, what are the groups, these out-of-state interest groups that are descending with so much money on Tennessee? They don't live here. Their kids don't go to school here. They don't drive on our pothole-filled roads. They don't, go through communities that are unsafe. But they're spending a lot of money, particularly these pro-voucher out-of-state groups, Americans for Prosperity, Student Success, Club for Growth. They're pouring literally millions of dollars both into the governor's race in Tennessee and into state house races, hundreds of thousands of dollars into state house races for jobs that the legislator earns about $30,000 a year doing.
Yeah.
So what is their incentive? What is their motivation? And most of these big spending groups are driven by the voucher scheme that Tennessee has put in place. They want to grow it. They want to expand it. And they will clearly profit from that. And it's interesting, all these mail pieces that you may be seeing hitting your mailbox, accusing this candidate, that candidate. Oh, he's a liberal. Oh, he's tied to Nancy Pelosi. Oh, he hates Trump. They're not talking about the voucher. They're not talking about policy. It is just smear campaigns to get somebody elected or not elected that will benefit them and their other interests that they're really hiding from view, because they're not talking about policy issues and trying to advance those. So you have to be very skeptical. You have to really dismiss a lot of the junk that you're going to see and hear, and certainly in the last week of the campaign. If you get the chance, go and talk to an actual candidate. Go talk to these people. Talk to people who know them. Talk to people who have had an experience with them, whose kids have gone to school with their kids, whose daughters have been on flag drill team with their daughters, whose kids have played sports with them. Talk to the people who know these people and can say, look, I know this person. I'm not judging by some TV commercial or mail piece. I know this person. You can trust me. I'm verifying they're the kind of person we need.
Yeah, you're right. And I think this is what is so discouraging for people. They just don't know who or what to believe. And if they do get a chance to go talk to a candidate, they might get a couple seconds with them because there's a long line of other people waiting to talk to them. I love what you're doing with the candidate conversations. What you're doing is giving people an opportunity to kind of get inside a conversation with them a little bit more. These people know you, they like you, they're showing up and getting on camera with you. And so you're kind of doing that for us, and that's really valuable.
Well, and we've really enjoyed doing that with candidates for Congress and John Rose, who's running for governor, to have literally about a 20-minute conversation that is a conversation. It's not a gotcha kind of interview. It's not a formal setting. We just did one with Todd Warner this morning down in Nolensville at the Amish mill, literally sitting aside the stream, and you could hear the water kind of rippling by. A little different format. We've done some where it's walk and talk, where we're walking with the candidate, having a conversation, and folks can go to tristardaily.com, click on the candidate conversations, and you can watch the full ones. Most of the candidates have agreed to do them. We've had a couple that have either decided they don't have time to sit down for the 20 or 30 minutes it takes, or they're convinced that I'm somehow unfair. Although I think anybody that's watched them is not raising any question of fairness. I think they've all been, completely fair and reasonable. Literally a conversation like you would want to have in your living room with somebody that you're wanting to get to know. So that's the way we've approached it. I think the candidates that haven't trusted that haven't watched the videos that are up, because I don't think anybody who's watching can tell whatever preference I might have. And frankly, most of the candidates that I've interviewed, I'm not even in their district to vote for or against them. So I'm trying to do the best possible way of treating everybody fairly. And we're going to continue this into the fall. And hopefully the Democrats will see some of these interviews and realize that we're going to conduct ourselves in the same fair way, talking to the nominees that the Democrats put up as we roll into the November election.
Well, and that's one thing I've found about you as I've known you now for several years, is that you are fair. And working directly with candidates when I was still in that political realm, you really were. You really do hold back your opinion. You just want the truth out there. And imagine that in journalism, the truth. I mean, that's one, again, this is why I say, this is why I rally behind TriStar Daily, because you really do bring that. Talking about the midterms, let's kind of shift to some of the headlines here real quick, I cannot believe we're 95 days away. That's like sobering. As we're coming into this midterm season, we're going to get through these primaries in the next week or so. What do you think is going to be top of mind for people coming in? We know the economy always is, but is there any nuance to that this year?
Well, it's interesting because the Democrats are really pounding this affordability issue. And when you look at so many of the goods and services that we purchase, prices are really pretty good. They're so much less than they were under Joe Biden. I mean, even when they complain about gas prices, keep in mind, we were paying $4.50, $4.75 a gallon. And even though I don't like that $3.79 I just paid today, it is significantly lower than where it was, if not as low as it can be. And hopefully we'll get back to when this conflict with Iran, comes to a conclusion. I think the clock is ticking. I did an interview earlier today and was asked, when I thought the gas prices have to come down not to have a negative impact on Republicans in the fall campaign. And I think, man, when you kick off that first college football game, if prices haven't dropped, which means we've got about 30 days for something to occur that gives, if not the end of the conflict, the light at the end of the tunnel to tell us that the prices are going to come down, they're going to be moving in the right direction. If we don't start that very dramatically, I think by early September, then I think Republicans are going to have that affordability problem. But keep in mind, Diane, there's never been a time when people said, man, isn't everything so cheap? People have always complained about prices,
Yeah.
probably, from the beginning of time, that, you had two cavemen arguing over, who was going to, get the cheaper spear, this guy or the other guy. Prices have never been, oh, everything's so cheap, I love it. So this affordability issue is being driven by those who are playing politics, I think, in many cases more than the actual pressures. I think that we do have some things that we can see an impact on pricing, but keep in mind that when you've got millions and millions of illegal aliens in this country,
Mhm.
that's driving up rent costs, that's driving up housing costs.
Mhm.
You've had those playing politics that have kept the interest rates high, that drives up mortgage costs. You've had a lot of other issues that are driven by the illegal immigration issue, and Republicans still prevail so strongly on the issue of illegal immigration, and it's not as top of mind as it was now that so much of that's been resolved with our border being more secure. But the cost we're paying, our car insurance cost, when you've got millions of illegals driving
Yes.
without licenses,
Mm.
causing traffic accidents that they don't pay for and they don't have insurance to cover, your insurance has to
Mhm.
go up
That's
to
right.
cover that. So there's all sorts of costs we're paying, healthcare and everything else that are tied to that issue. And I think Republicans need to do a better job of tying affordability, not just to gas prices, but to the high prices we're paying, because we are still not deporting the tens of millions of illegal aliens who are not only on our backs as taxpayers, collecting taxpayer benefits, whether it's housing, whether it's direct payments, whether it's food stamps, whether it's health care, whether it's their kids in our schools, whether it's the crime rate that they're increasing and diverting our police from dealing in a community over here to having to go over there. There is a huge cost. I think Republicans need to do a much better job of making it clear to voters that cost will only come down if we continue the policies that President Trump and the Republicans are implementing.
Yeah, and it's so true. People don't think about all those trickle effects, all those ways that it gets distributed out into the community. And just on a personal note, I've been on the receiving end of an illegal hitting me with a vehicle. I was a pedestrian walking into a gas station around 9 o'clock at night. This is years ago. And a illegal immigrant here from Honduras stole a customer's truck. He was working in a tire shop. He was living in an apartment above it. The owner of the tire shop let him stay there illegally, put him up. He was doing a beer run for the party that he was having and stole a customer's truck, drove down to the gas station to get more beer, ran over me in the parking lot on his way out and almost killed me. And he hit and ran, of course, because of fear of being deported. So this is what my issue is with it, is that when they break one law to get here, they've got to break a string more to stay here. But the cost to that, I had State Farm at the time, and talking about the insurance, repercussions of that, 2 years of my life that, thank God I had good insurance. I had health insurance and I had State Farm and all this, but, I lost 2 years of my life, and my insurance company had to come in and carry that. The uninsured motorist policy kicked in, which took care of me. But still, this is what happens. And yes, this is why it's driven up. That's a prime example. Luckily, I was able to recover from it, but this is what I have personal firsthand experience with that. And it's so true. Everything you just said.
And the Democrats and the media want to constantly drive the appeal, particularly to women, to feel politics. How do you feel? How does this make you feel? How do you feel about this? Rather than how do you think? What do you think about this? And thinking should trump feelings, particularly as we look at these somewhat complicated issues. And we're told that, well, many of these illegals, all they've done is break one law and they came into the country illegally. But that's just one law. It's like, no, they're using identity theft to work here illegally. They are working here illegally. They are getting on taxpayer benefits illegally. As we're seeing increasingly, they are registering to vote and voting illegally. There is a whole slew of crimes these people are
driving
committing.
vitables without driver's licenses illegally. I mean, how much time you got? We can list them all,
And yet that compassionate feel of, but I feel sorry. Well, sorry doesn't, take care of our family. Sorry doesn't improve our economy. Sorry doesn't make our streets safer. Sorry doesn't make it more accessible for healthcare for those in our rural communities that are being deprived, access to healthcare because we're having to fund illegal alien healthcare in our cities. So, we've got to make sure that people are thinking rather than simply being motivated by very easily manipulated feelings. And I think, as we kind of look into the November election, that's going to be critical, particularly when you have the Democrats nominating people who are promoting, and you're seeing some of these polls that young people in particular, socialism and communism sound fine. Free stuff sounds good. Now, keep in mind that a lot of these young voters that are embracing the DSA, the Democrat Socialist Party, are those who grew up with everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah.
Everybody gets free stuff. We're not going to have valedictorians. We're not going to have competition for who's the best. We're going to just treat everybody the same on the end, rather than giving everybody the opportunity through hard work. Again, we're kind of back to that, lazy, not doing the work to get what you're wanting to achieve. We slip away from that. And keep in mind, as one of my friends pointed out, a lot of these young voters that are embracing Democrat socialism are the ones that were eating Tide Pods just a few years ago. So that's the moronic mentality we're dealing with to some extent. But it's dangerous, because you can't let communism and socialism seep in, because it is so hard to eradicate once it takes hold. Once people do think and realize that the promises of free stuff, the promises of nirvana, the promises that will do socialism right when it's never worked anywhere in the rest of the world, by the time you realize that with your head and get past your heart, it's too late. And that's why we have to make sure that we're educating and illuminating and making sure people understand over the next 95 days or so. Now, again, they're mainly winning these whack job crazy Democrats, liberal woke craziness in very dark blue congressional districts. But they're going to pretend to be something they're not, to try and move some of the purple, which is the blend of red and blue, conservative and liberal. They're going to talk in soft tones. They're going to communicate in ways that don't sound as radical as what they'll do if they get in. So it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, the Democrats are really nominating a lot of whack job crazies who want to abolish prisons, abolish ICE, abolish the Pentagon, abolish borders. I mean, when you listen to what the Democrat socialists are for, it is beyond crazy stuff. And that's good, because they should lose in general elections. But if they win, we're going to have more AOCs, more Presleys, more Bernie Sanders, and more Mamdanis like in New York. And you can't have more of that and hope to push back against the really bad ideas that they have.
And that's the thing, is it's not that they get in office because they quote unquote win, because the large majority of America is conservative, is red. But the problem is we just don't go out and vote. So they get in by proxy. Like, they get in just because their base is the only one motivated enough to go vote. And that's what we're talking about here today. And I'll tell you.
And we're back to the theme of the day. Do the work. I mean, as Christians, as conservatives, you got to do the work, get up off your rear end, out of the pews to the polls. Don't let people say, well, my vote doesn't matter. We have so many races that are determined by such a narrow majority that we lose because we didn't show up. So again, we're back to that same thing. You got to do the work. And that means getting up and participating, even if you're not 100% sure of who you want to vote for. That's why you do the work. Find out what the issues are, find out the candidates you can trust, and ask your friends and neighbors who are more involved than you are for some direction. Now, look, I'm a guy. We never ask for direction. So I'm saying, do as I say, not as I do. But in this case, it's important. So ask for some directions from people you trust.
You just lost all credibility there. My pastor would say, get up off your blessed assurance and do the work. And I'll tell you, a lot of people think, because Lady Up is we're all about the feminine energy. I mean, not in your segment. Okay. But I'm just saying normally, that feminine energy and all. But the thing about it is I'm very tough love here. People say all the time, what does Lady Up mean? It means get up, it means grow up in your faith. It means get out there, do the work, and I'll tell you, there's so much dignity in doing that. Like, God calls us to that as Christians. We have to be responsible. It is not all about our comfort and our luxuries and our, plush pillows and all. Like, our life is not our own. He bought it with a very significant price, the price of his blood. And we should be about his business. We should be out here doing, get out of our comfort zones, be willing to be inconvenienced, be willing to do the work, and get out here and take responsibility for this freedom that we've been so graciously given by people who bled and died on battlefields to give it to us. And so I have zero, like not even this, like zero tolerance now for people not willing to do the work. So if you're thinking about just laying around on your blessed assurance, this is not the show for you. You just need to go ahead and tune out right now. But for those who get it, yes, we're pushing them on this show. It's time, like it's go time. This is not a drill. Like our country, the very freedom that we hold dear for our children and our grandchildren, literally, this is our watch. It's in our hands in this election. And I know they get on us all the time, Steve, because we say, oh, this is the most important election. Well, because they just keep getting more and more serious. Like the stakes just keep getting higher and higher. And you know what's going to feel bad? Like if they want to talk about manipulating feelings and all of that, what feels bad is watching our freedom go away. What feels bad is watching our daughters go into burqas. What feels bad is watching more and more cities being taken over by the Mamdanis of the world. And with Netanyahu coming to town and all these things that are going on up there, we're seeing Jewish people I saw them ride on the subway up there, no Jews. I mean, there's a serious anti-Semitism right now, and it's coming for the Christians next. So we need to wake up. I know I'm on my soapbox. I'm sorry, not sorry, but I'll give you the last word today. But I'm fired up. I'm fired up today.
Well, we need to be fired up. As you point out, after you lose, it's too late. Again, we've used the sports analogy a bit today, talking about doing the work. 2 minutes after the game ends, it's too late to say, man, I should have run those stadium steps one more time. I should have worked out a little bit harder. I should have studied the game films just a little better. It's too late after the game is over.
Right.
So now is the time to get the work in. Now is the time to strengthen your core of your beliefs as a Christian, of your passions to put into effect. And now's the time to do that. Don't wake up on August 7th or the day after the election in November and think, man, woulda, coulda, shoulda, because it's too late.
That's right. That's right. Great way to end that segment. Perfect. Get up off your blessed assurance. Pews to the polls, Steve says. That's what we got to do. Thank you so much, Steve. Ladies, go to TriStar Daily and get your news. TriStarDaily.com. Get your news there. Like we talked about earlier, it's fair, it's balanced, and it's a good distilling down so you don't have to sit in front of those news headlines all day long. Just go get it from Steve. That's where we need to get it from. Steve, thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate you.
See you next week.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Welcome to the tea time segment of our show today. This is our opportunity to just slow down together. Let's take a breath and let it out. And just lean into God's word and a nice hot cup of tea. If you need to pause the video for a second and go make one for yourself, please do that. Come back and cheers. I'm drinking my chamomile tea today, which I love. If you watch me regularly, you know that I don't stray from that very often. But speaking of chamomile, I do want to share something with you. So hold that thought for just a second. As I've been developing Lady Up America, ladies have asked me, well, how can I support it? And I really haven't had a good solution for that. Also, ladies have asked me after workshops and things like that. They say, I just still feel like I need some hand holding from you. I don't feel like I've got the guts yet to go try the techniques that I've learned from you. And then other ladies have said, hey, I live outside of Tennessee. I can't get to one of your workshops. Do you have anything, available like a live stream or online for your workshops? So I've been praying about this a lot and studying different solutions for that, where I could kind of combine all three, make it fun, make it easy. And I finally found something. So as of today, you can click on the link in the description in this podcast, the Ko-fi link, Ko-fi. It's kofi.com/Lady Up America. And that's a way we solve all those problems. So you can go in and you can buy me a cup of hot tea. That's a way to kind of support the show with a donation. Or you can sign up for one of my membership plans. So that's where the chamomile comes in. I've got a chamomile membership for my entry levelers who are just kind of wanting to dip their toe in and get their feet wet and find out what all this Lady Up America stuff has to offer. And then I've got a jasmine membership. That's for my all inners. That's for the ones who just are totally bought into the techniques and really want to master them and become tea lights in their own community, master influencers with their neighbors, friends, and family. So that's available now. I do want to let you know that I am not a 501c3. And so I just want to be very honest and clear with you about that on the front end. The reason is because although this is not a political show, certainly not at all anymore. This is a ministry, but I do talk a lot about candidates and I talk about parties and politics. And so when you become a nonprofit, they handcuff you in that area. And I don't want to be handcuffed. So that's why this is not a nonprofit. But that's the only reason why. Everything that is donated, everything that comes in goes right back into this show. So if you want to donate or if you want to sign up for one of the membership plans, I encourage you to do that. I welcome you and invite you to do that because this is all about Jesus. This show, the workshops, the live streams, the books, everything that I'm developing is with my passion for the Lord because I believe with all my heart that we're in the last days and we need as many women equipped as possible. And you supporting the show just helps me to keep showing up here every week and keep pumping out everything that God is pouring into me. I want to pour out onto you and get us really super active out in our faith walk in our communities. We're all a work in progress. We're learning together, and I sure appreciate your support. So go to the link in the description or to Lady Up America. You'll see the buttons there, and you can now donate or become part of the Lady Up America mission with me. Welcome. All right, let's dive into our topic today. We're going to lady up enough with the sloppy Christianity. All right. I know that a lot of you are really trying, and I'm really trying. I don't want this to be like a scolding session in any way. Please don't take it like that. But I do want to challenge us today because maybe there's some areas we can tweak. Maybe there's some areas that we're still a little sloppy in that we need to come up higher in. One thing I have learned from the ladies, from all of you who give me feedback and who follow me, what I find is that my followers really are eager to grow up in their faith. I really don't attract baby Christians. They don't stick with me very long. But if you're here and you've been watching for a while, it's because you are hungry for the Lord and you are hungry to go deeper. And the things that I say with you, that I say here resonate with you because there are some areas where you can lady up. So, and I'm right there with you too. I don't want to face the Lord. And I do believe he's coming back any minute. I don't want to face him and feel like I left anything at all undone. I want to believe that I left it all on the field for him. And if that's you, then you're going to love today's show. Okay. We're always going to start in scripture. I'm in James and I'm in chapter 1, and I'm going to start in verse 16. So James 1:16, if you want to turn there in your Bible. And I'm reading out of the Amplified Bible. Do not be misled, my beloved brothers and sisters. Every good thing given and every perfect gift is from above. It comes down from the Father of lights. You know how I love the light analogy. The creator and the sustainer of the heavens, in whom there is no variation, no rising or setting or shadow cast by his turning, for he is perfect and never changes. It was of his own will that he gave us birth as his children by the word of truth, so that we would be a kind of first fruits of his creatures, a prime example of what he created to be set apart to himself, sanctified, made holy for his divine purposes. And lastly, here in verse 19, understand this, my beloved brothers and sisters. Let everyone be quick to hear, be a careful, thoughtful listener, slow to speak, a speaker of carefully chosen words, and slow to anger, patient, reflecting, and forgiving. So I really want to dissect these verses because there's so much wisdom in them here and things that really pertain to our topic about sloppy Christianity. So the first thing he starts out with is do not be misled. We know in the world it's so easy for us to get misled, not only by things people say, but also by our own hearts and our minds. We can justify anything. Can I get an amen? We can justify it. If we don't want to do something, we can find a good excuse to not do it. But he says, don't be misled. And then he says, every good thing given, and every perfect gift is from above. It comes down from the Father of lights. Okay, let's just think about that for a minute. Every good thing that we have, God gave us, is what that verse is saying. Out of his goodness, out of his love for us, he gave it to us. It's a perfect gift from above. So everything that's good in our lives came from him. So it's really not ours. We're stewards of it, but he gave it to us. And so not with an obligation. Like I don't think he gave us things and said, okay, I'm giving you this, so you owe me. It's not that. It's because he gave us such beautiful gifts, so many things that just shower us with his love. We want then, it should change our want to. We want to give back to him. That's the subtle difference there. It's not, oh, I have to get up and go do this. It's no, I get to get up and go do this. I don't want us to ever look at this beautiful dance that we have with the Lord, this exchange that we have with the Lord through any kind of obligatory lens. Okay. And then he goes on to say, it was of his own will that he gave us birth as his children by the word of truth. So he chose us. He chose to bring us into family and to fellowship with him. And he did that by the word of truth. We know that is Jesus Christ. Jesus is the living word, the living water. He is the word. So that we would be a kind of first fruits of his creatures, a prime example of what he created to be set apart to himself, sanctified and made holy for his divine purposes. And therein lies the rub. He didn't create us and pour all this on us and love us and give us all these beautiful gifts so that we could lay around and just loaf in them. And this is the part where we get tripped up because it's just not about us. All these gifts, everything that he gives us are so that then we can carry out his purposes in the world. Well, what does that mean at the practical level? Okay, if he gave you a beautiful home, then we should open it to people that he leads us to open it to and be willing to be out of our comfort zone a little bit to let people share in it with us. So that means if we need to, like I had a friend who came through town. I think I told y'all last week, she needed a place to lay her head for the night. Well, it's my obligation, and I don't want to use that word, but it's my pleasure. It's my honor to share the gift that God gave me with her. If I have a car and somebody needs a ride and they're down and out, then I have the pleasure, the honor of going and picking them up and maybe taking them somewhere. One day I saw these kids walking down the street in the winter with no coats on, and we have all these coats jamming up several of our closets that we don't ever wear, and I told those kids that I'm going to be back with coats. And I went home and I got my coats, these gifts, and I took them to them. And I'm not trying to bring attention to what I'm doing. I'm just trying to give you practical examples of how this plays out in our lives. So everything we have is a gift, a perfect gift from him, and it's to be shared with others. If you have a beautiful voice, then you should sing and you should share that voice so that other people can enjoy that gift that God gave you. If you're a great baker, God gave you the talent to cook or to bake, then, how much pleasure does it bring you to cook and bake for people and then share that gift with them? That's what I'm talking about. So it's not for us or even just for our family. It's for us to share with our neighbors, to share with people. When we're talking in Lady Up about tea parties, we're talking about inviting ladies in for a cup of tea. Again, only the one that God lays on your heart. We don't want to do it, right? We don't want to bring a stranger into our home and I don't even know her. And what am I going to talk about? And we start to resist because we just don't want to do it, right? Well, here's what I'm telling you. We got to stop it. We got to be willing to be uncomfortable. We got to be willing to be about his business. I've got some friends, James and Trisha Fenimore, and that's what they say all the time. We need to be about his business. It was his will that he gave us birth by the word of truth, that we would be kind of first fruits for his creatures, created to be set apart to himself, sanctified and made holy for his divine purposes. This means, like, we can talk about the gifts and all those things, but when we shift over now into this verse 19, where he's talking about how we need to be walking out our faith. So being slow to speak, slow to anger, quick to hear, these kinds of things. This is another part of maturity, right? So we don't get to just blurt out the first thing that we think, or we don't get to have knee-jerk reactions to things anymore. It means that we're being called to a higher standard. We got to lady up. Recently, because of my husband's health challenges, I've been a little bit lazy about going to church. Not a little bit, a lot lazy. We started watching online a year ago, and we really hadn't participated much in our church for a whole year. And I was feeling really convicted about it and really feeling the tug to come back to church. But, it's really comfortable. We get settled in on Sunday mornings, after we get up and get our coffee, get settled into, we've got recliners now, like the old people. The old people know what's going on. They know how to live. But we've got these two great recliners, and I love to just cuddle up in them and put the blankets over me and, make another cup of coffee and watch church online. And that's what I've been doing. Now, we maybe started out with, legitimate reasons for doing that, but it's made me very, very lazy. And so I was talking to my pastor, and I was explaining to him, that we've been watching online and, talking about how, Brian's health has been an issue, but, and before I could even say it, he kind of finished my sentence, and he says, yeah, and it's a pretty good excuse too, isn't it? And I said, yeah, yeah, it is. It's a good excuse. And he said, Diane, he goes, you need to get your butt back in church. And when he said it, I knew he was right. I do full-time ministry, and I gather with women regularly, and I'm in my Bible every day and all that. And I think, okay, that's enough. Like, Lord, I'm pouring into you every day. Like, you're pouring into me, and I'm pouring into you every day, and I'm pouring into my ladies. But you know what? That he calls me to obey by not forgoing gathering with other believers, not being part of a local church. Like, that's something that is required of me in my faith. And when my pastor said, it's just really not about you, Diane. And he said, are you going to obey God or not? When he put it that way, as big as I am on obedience, it jerked a knot in my tail, as my Nana used to say. It really did. It sobered me up. And I thought, you know what? I want to obey him so badly. And I felt like I was. But my pastor just put it right in my face. And he said, get your butt back in church. He says, even if you don't come to this one, you need to be in a church. And I decided to go back to my church, of course. But he was absolutely right. And I've told him several times since I've seen him, because I've been going back now for a couple months. And I'm plugged back into Sunday school, and I've joined the choir. And, I know that that's what I'm supposed to do. Like, it feels, even though it's really hard on Sunday mornings sometimes to get up and make myself go, I'd rather lounge in the bed. I'd rather lounge in my chair, but I got to grow up. I got to lady up, and I got to obey God. I got to be willing to do things that are just uncomfortable or that are inconvenient, to my flesh, and then go do what's right in the sight of God. And that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Now, that's a simple example, but there's a lot of ways in our culture. And when we're dealing with difficult people in our lives, and we're encountering very challenging, cultural issues and political issues and things like that, it's real easy for us to just get lazy in our Christianity by just staying in our comfort zones, staying in our homes, not really poking our head out, not really getting out and helping people or talking to people. It's just easier to not approach the conversation, right? In Lady Up America, I'm teaching you all the time about how to have these hard conversations. Well, it's just a lot easier to just not have them, to opt out. I really don't want to get into it. Oh, I really don't want to learn these techniques, because then it means I'd have to do them. I really don't want to do them. I get it. I get that. But I'm going to tell you, like my pastor told me, it's really not about you. It's really not about you. It's about him. And he's trying to reach that person and you're going to be the person he wants to work through to go reach them. Are you going to obey or not? You going to do it? You're going to let him use you or not? You're going to let him use you if somebody needs a place to crash for a night or 2 or 3, you're going to open your home to them and let them come into your private sanctuary and potentially disrupt it, and maybe leave a mess, and maybe not live the way you live. And maybe it's going to be inconvenient. And maybe it's going to, cause you some extra work. It's really not about you. He gave you that house. He gave you those resources. He gave you that car. You're going to go give somebody a ride if they need it. If it means you got to get up an hour earlier, what's it going to be? Are you going to serve him, or are you going to serve you? Are you serving the God of heaven, or are you serving the God of you? And these are questions we have to ask ourselves. These are the hard questions. Who are you going to serve? Who are you going to serve? And when it comes to having these tough conversations with your neighbors and all, listen, in Lady Up America, I give you every possible tool to help you do this in a way that it does not lead to confrontation. In fact, that's the whole point in Lady Up, is how to have a graceful, gentle conversation where you're not getting in an argument. You're not trying to win an argument. Instead, you're trying to win a heart, and you're trying to plant seeds that will then cause that person to question their own beliefs, not argue with yours. Okay, so in Lady Up, it's like I hand it to you literally like on this silver platter. Like I give it to you on this silver platter, and still some of y'all are sitting back and going, meh, I don't know. I don't know if I really want to do all that. I don't really want to know. I don't know if I really want to reach out to people. You know what? Again, I'm going to say to you, like he said to me, just ain't about you. Just ain't about you. It's about him. And it's about he can use you if you're willing to go reach that person. We need the skills. We need the techniques on how to do that. You going to learn them? I've got them right here for you. Tried and true and tested over my lifetime. But you got to pick up the book. You got to pick up the workshop. You got to join the membership. You got to be willing to come in and learn. You got to get in your Bible. And that's what we don't want to do. And that's what I'm talking about. It's sloppy Christianity. You know, all of my techniques are biblical. They're all biblical. I mean, I can go to this verse right here again in verse 19. Understand this, brothers and sisters. Let everyone be quick to hear, meaning be a careful, thoughtful listener. Well, you know what? That's my entertaining step. I teach you we build this out pretty strongly, but in my entertaining step, I teach you how to lean in, be a curious listener, the right questions to ask to build what I call trust equity with someone. So that's my entertaining step. And then he says, be slow to speak, a speaker of carefully chosen words. Okay. That's my gardening step. It's responding, not reacting. These are the things I go into and teach you in depth on how to not be triggered by your emotion, how to rise above that. And in a moment where you totally disagree with this person, how to respond with carefully chosen words. That's my gardening step. And then talking about this, slow to anger, patient, reflective, forgiving. Well, that's my housekeeping step. We learn to walk out the fruit of the Spirit. We learn to let go of offense. We learn to forgive people. We learn to let go of hypocrisy, to be true examples, ambassadors of Jesus Christ. So everything I'm teaching you in Lady Up, right here in the Bible, James 1:19. So you going to learn it or not? Now, let me retell you about my membership plans. You can go into the link in this comment section right here, and you can click on that Ko-fi link, ko-fi.com/LadyUpAmerica, that one, and come in and become either a chamomile member, start dipping your toe into my techniques, or you can go all in and become a Jasmine member, and I will pour everything into you that the Lord has poured into me. And again, all the membership money, whatever you pour in your membership, just goes right back into this so that we can go reach more ladies and train and teach them. That's it. There's no ulterior motive. Like, I'm about his business, and I want you to be too. So enough with the sloppy Christianity. Lady up and get in one of these programs. I'm going to tell you, like my pastor said, you need to get your butt back in church. I'm telling you in the most loving and kind way, you need to get your butt in one of my programs. We've got a lot of work to do, y'all. In all seriousness, we're in the last days. The time is short. There's neighbors, there's people walking beside you, living beside you, working beside you that are facing eternal separation from Almighty God. And one conversation with you could change that. With the help of the Holy Spirit in you and applying the techniques that I can teach you, their eternal address could change. What's it going to be? Who are you going to serve? Lady up.